know. Weird how that might get you better treatment from the U.S. government. I mean, I'm sure Vietnam has lots of good reasons to make sure a Trump Organization resort project is moving forward. Lots and lots and lots of them. It's weird that they think that might be correlated with the U.S. government giving them some sort of favorable treatment. But let's just stick a pin in that one for a second. There's another story I want to tell you. And I will tell you, even though I'm going to use the word cryptocurrency in telling you this story, don't worry, you don't have to understand anything about cryptocurrency in order to get this story. But here it is. A couple of years ago, the Justice Department accused an online cryptocurrency company that's called Binance of being basically a supermarket for crime. DOJ accused Binance of being a giant money laundering hub for terrorists and cyber criminals and customers in sanctioned countries like Iran and Russia.
J.D. Vance should probably stop going on vacation. He took a trip to a ski resort. It was protested to his face. He traveled to Greenland. And that was not just a personal embarrassment because no one wanted to shake his hand. It was also a national embarrassment because of what a joke J.D. Vance is. And today, he traveled to the Vatican, and it went about just as badly, I would say. Even worse because of what Pope Francis did to humiliate J.D. Vance and what he had to say as well. We are going to get into all of it, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, there has been some tension in a back and forth between the Pope and J.D. Vance, and it all started after a very brave bishop. You may remember this spoke out against the Trump administration after Trump was inaugurated. And so, for context, before we get into what happened at the Vatican today, I want to take a listen to that very brave bishop.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation. But the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land. May God grant us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love, and walk humbly with each other and our God for the good of all people in this nation and the world. Amen.
Now, as those words have turned into a very scary reality, that message becomes all the more important. And after J.D. Vance heard it, being the awful individual that he is, He took his tiny little fingers, him and Donald Trump have that in common, to Twitter to complain, saying that the church actually tells you it's not about loving your neighbor. No, it's about loving your state, and that means not letting people who are fleeing persecution in not treating people with kindness. It's all about nationalism. That was the message of Christ, according to J.D. Vance. Yeah, it didn't really land, and the Pope spoke out against that, and still has against the disgusting and illegal deportation plan of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And that's why J.D.'s trip to the Vatican was kind of wasted, and very publicly. And I want to take a look at how Pope sends deputy to lecture Vance on compassion at the Vatican. Pope Francis skipped the Vatican's official meeting with Vice President J.D. Vance Saturday, instead having his number 2 give the Vice President a lecture on compassion. Pope Francis was absent from Vance's conversation with the Cardinal. However, the statement said that there was an exchange of opinions on the international situation, especially regarding countries affected by war, political tensions, and difficult humanitarian situations, with particular attention to migrants, refugees, and prisoners. It called for serene collaboration between the White House and the Catholic Church in the United States, a seeming hint to the tensions that have brewed between the two since President Donald Trump took office. Inside Vatican sources told Sky News that Vance did briefly meet with the Pope at his residence, but no details of their conversation have been made. Public Pope Francis has repeatedly rebuked the president's mass deportation effort, calling it a disgrace and a grave sin. The pontiff has also specifically confronted Vance, the highest-ranking Catholic in the U.S. government, having converted in 2019 without mentioning the VP by name. The Pope corrected a Catholic concept Vance had invoked to defend the administration's deportation. In a February letter, Francis pointedly explained, "Christian love is not a concentric expansion of interest that little by little extend to other persons and groups." Vance acknowledged the Pope's criticism, calling himself a baby Catholic, and admitting that there are things about faith that I don't know the Pope. 88 is recovering from a serious bout of pneumonia that kept him in the hospital for more than a month. However, he has resumed his official duties. He was well enough to meet with King Charles and Queen Camilla when they visited the Vatican last week. Vance is spending the Easter weekend in Rome after meeting with the Italian Prime Minister. He and his wife Usha were in attendance at the Vatican's Good Friday service. So Pope Francis clearly not very happy with J.D. Vance. And why should he be? Little Stern talking to. I don't know if that'll change JD's opinions, probably not, because he doesn't really seem to have any opinions other than how can I get the most power. That's all he really cares about. But it is nice to have him humiliated and called out for these lies that he was pushing, trying to co-opt his faith to what come up with a ridiculous narrative that it is not actually the duty of those who practice their faith to care about others. He is such a joke. It's so sad. It is so sad. But the Pope didn't really want to meet with JD. I like it. I respect it. A little different from what the Trump administration does when it's not that they don't want to meet with despicable people. They actually love meeting with the worst people. And Rachel Maddow broke all that down in a story about some of the most shocking corruption we've seen out of this administration.
I'll show you what I mean. Here's the headline in the Wall Street Journal. The headline is, "Anxious trading partners promise to buy American to stave off Trump's tariffs." And you've seen a million articles like this, right? The bulk of the article under that headline is about what you would expect. Again, you've seen a lot like this. It's about various countries trying to strike deals with the U.S. so they can get themselves some relief, some favored treatment from Trump amid his gigantic, catastrophic world tariff experiment. So the countries are trying to get themselves some kind of relief, and among those discussed in this article is the nation of Vietnam. According to the Wall Street Journal, Vietnam has been trying to fend off harsh treatment under Trump's tariffs by, number one, buying American jets, Number 2, allowing the Starlink internet service that's owned by Donald Trump's top campaign donor, Elon Musk, to operate inside their country. Weird that they decided that was a good idea. And number 3, here's the kicker. Vietnam has also, quote, decided to accelerate the approvals for a $1.5 billion Trump resort in Vietnam. Oh, weird how that might get you better treatment from the U.S. government. I mean, I'm sure Vietnam has lots of good reasons to make sure a Trump Organization resort project is moving forward. Lots and lots and lots of them. It's weird that they think that might be correlated with the U.S. government giving them some sort of favorable treatment. But let's just stick a pin in that one for a second. There's another story I want to tell you. And I will tell you, even though I'm going to use the word cryptocurrency in telling you this story, don't worry, you don't have to understand anything about cryptocurrency in order to get this story. But here it is. A couple of years ago, the Justice Department accused an online cryptocurrency company that's called Binance of being basically a supermarket for crime. DOJ accused Binance of being a giant money laundering hub for terrorists and cyber criminals and customers in sanctioned countries like Iran and Russia. Binance pled guilty. They paid over $4 billion. That was the largest fine ever in the history of crypto. Its founder spent 4 months in prison. Ever since, Binance has been overseen by U.S. government-appointed monitors who ensure that Binance is no longer a supermarket for crime. It is now following the law and making sure Binance is only operating overseas and not operating in the United States at all. Now, Binance, naturally, they would very much like to get out from under that oversight, and they would very much like to operate in the United States again. But to do that, they need to get these pesky government monitors off their back. They need the U.S. government to decide they are out of the doghouse. And it would make their return easier, of course, if their founder were no longer a convicted felon. Well, when Donald Trump won the election last year, Binance sensed opportunity. This is also from the Wall Street Journal, quote, at an Abu Dhabi crypto conference last December, weeks before the inauguration, in the Wales-only back room accessible to attendees who had paid $10,000 for a VIP pass, Binance's founder mingled with Trump's son Eric and Trump allies. Eric was there to promote World Liberty, a crypto venture the Trump family had founded months earlier. For World Liberty, Binance's market power could help turn it into a serious player in the crypto industry. Binance has more than 250 million users. The more World Liberty cryptocurrency in circulation, of course, quote, the more the Trump family could profit. Again, ignore the word, like, cryptocurrency. This could be anything. I mean, say the Trump family had launched a new company that makes doohickeys. Well, Binance, if they partnered with the Trump family in this enterprise, they could get Trump doohickeys in front of hundreds of millions of potential customers, which would, of course, mean lots of profit for the Trump family. That is what Binance is offering to the Trump family. What does Binance want? Well, their convicted felon founder, quote, has been pushing for a Trump administration pardon. Has been pushing for the Trump administration to grant him a pardon. And the Wall Street Journal reports, quote, executives from Binance met with Treasury Department officials last month and discussed loosening U.S. government oversight on the company. Quote, Binance executives are optimistic the Trump administration will acquiesce. Oh, yeah. Oh, they are they? Maybe that's because as president, Donald Trump has already pardoned a whole slew of crypto felons, and his Justice Department has just disbanded its crypto policing unit. And also because Trump's SEC halted an investigation of another crypto executive after that executive dumped $75 million into the Trump family crypto company. So if the Wall Street Journal's reporting on this bears out, this is not even like... This isn't even like textbook corruption, because you would not need to get to the level of school that uses textbooks in order to get to this level of understanding of corruption. This is like a coloring book of corruption. This is like corruption that you could understand if you'd never been to any school ever, anywhere. In any other time in American history, this scandal, 1/10 of this scandal, would be the end of a presidency. But this is just like day that ends in Y.
I'm so glad that Mad Owl always makes that point. If this was any other administration, this would be the story all the time. This would be game change. It would be over. And yet we just move on. And I know we have to not move on, but try to cover it all. But it is important to remember that just because there are somehow more egregious scandals, it does not take away how bad all the other ones are. They still are important to talk about. And that's why we are going to on the show every single day. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.